So we're going to have a welcome by President McDavis, who physically is not in the building, but he is with us in spirit.
Welcome to Ohio University's first Marketing Symposium. Presented by the Marketing Advisory Council, the symposium provides us with an opportunity to focus on strategies that will help us all become better advocates for and promoters of Ohio's brand. I regret that I am unable to join you today, but please know that I deeply value this initiative and appreciate the opportunity to tell you about the Marketing Advisory Council by video. The Marketing Advisory Council was created in January 2011 and is co-chaired by Craig Davis, an assistant professor in the Scripps College of Communication, and Chris Moberg, faculty chair and academic director in the College of Business. Both of these faculty members, along with each Marketing Advisory Council member, act as ambassadors to influence understanding, accountability, and support for marketing and communications across the institution. The Marketing Advisory Council has seen success in its efforts, and I am proud of the Council's achievements. A few accomplishments since 2011 include helping to secure base funding for marketing to support continued campaigns to recruit students to Athens, revising and expanding the scope of the external communications policy to include guidelines for social media and management of the brand, assisting with the launch of our new recruitment and branding initiative, It's You, and securing a single media buyer to begin work on an integrated marketing plan. The list goes on and on. To the members of the Marketing Advisory Council, thank you for all that you do. Today's event encourages the collaboration necessary to keep Ohio University moving forward with a more consistent voice, the importance of which I don't have to tell you about. You realize the necessity of reaching out into the world with a united front, to refrain from sending out differing messages that can cause confusion among current and prospective students, alumni, and friends of the institution. I am very pleased to have individuals from all over the university eager to keep the Ohio brand strong. It's through our coming together and our willingness to work together as a team that Ohio University will continue to lead the way in higher education standards. I would like to recognize University Communications and Marketing for its leadership in managing and promoting the brand. I believe that we are now in a position to become an even greater force for realizing the university's vision of being the nation's best transformative learning community. As Ohio University communicators, you publish and preach the vision of this great institution. It is through your publications, your communications, and your outreach that the world is introduced to this place that has changed so many lives for the better. It is my belief that the symposium today will help you strengthen your efforts to promote Ohio so that you can become even better advocates of the brand. Thank you for being here today.
So at this time, I would like to ask Craig Davis to come up and talk about our brand advocates program.
The brand ambassador committee met. We're part of the Marketing Advisory Council, and our goal was to develop what started out as a brand ambassador program. And it's changed over time, and I'm going to take you through how we came to this recommendation. We had our first meeting. Go ahead and go to the next one. In February. This is how long it takes. Renee gives me a project. It's going to be a year before it gets done. We started out in February and had a meeting. Okay, we got to develop a brand ambassador program, and we were all scratching our head of, what is this? How are we going to develop this? Isn't it confusing with other brand ambassadors from the colleges around the university? So we were kind of, not really sure on where to go with this. So we decided, let's talk to the campus communicators first to understand what their perspective was. So I showed up at one of the meetings in March, and I said, we're considering doing this, and I got a show of hands of everyone that thought it was a great idea. And I also got 20 people that gave me their name and email address that said, we think this is a great idea, contact us, we'd like to provide some feedback on that program. So what we did as a committee was we contacted all those people, we split up. Each of us that was on the committee interviewed, I think, 4 or 5 of the campus communicators, and we gathered that feedback, and then we started our meetings again. And we looked at the conclusions that, or the insight that we looked at the research to get insights from that, and here's what we came up with. Basically, there was confusion on what a brand ambassador program was, but everyone said there were positive effects, and if we're going to do something, we have to do it within the resources available. We don't want to go over and above what we have here at the university. And it shouldn't drop a lot more work on all the campus communicators. It should be something that's easy to do and easy to implement. And finally, as you heard President McDavis say, it has to have the backing of top leadership here. And he just spoke about the importance of that. So that's our research implications. I have a full study. If you're interested in reading that, I would be happy to send that to you. But really, these are the conclusions that we came up with. So go to the next one. So one of the things we had to decide was, if we're going to do this, how are we going to structure it? We had lots of discussion on this. We basically came up with 3 alternatives, and I'm going to just quickly share those. These are alternatives that we talked about. Why don't we bring one person in and have them be the brand advocate? It didn't work so well. I was the only one that said, oh, that's probably a good idea. And everyone said, no, it's not. So my idea went down. But that's somewhat how other universities are structured. The other way we looked at it was, go to the next one, sort of operating the way we're doing now, by each college has their own brand advocate that works within the college. And that's what we liked about that was it's already in place, but it's kind of the way we're working right now. There's nothing new. So that idea was kind of put aside. The next one was to look at it almost like publicly traded companies. Maybe we form a brand advocate committee, and each committee is responsible for a discipline or a media. We talked about that idea, and some people liked it, some people didn't. So the bottom line was, as the chair of this committee, we really didn't, we couldn't come back and say this is the perfect solution for Ohio University. But what we did was, go to the next slide, our recommendation was to first rename this and call it a brand advocate program. The second one is to start this almost as a grassroots kind of approach. And what we wanted to do was see how this organically grew, and we wanted to give you all the tools to do your job and to provide feedback about what we're giving to you, and take it from there. There may be someone within this group who does want to be a brand advocate, and that's great. There may be people that don't want to be brand advocates, and that's okay too. But we're kind of letting it evolve. We're starting out with the toolkits and the things that you've told us that are important, and that's how we're going to move forward. This symposium is the first step to that. So if you can go to the next one. Actually, this is just a summary that shows where we are. A brand advocate functions as partners to ensure that Ohio University's brand gains positive national recognition in the marketplace. It has support from top leadership. The role of the brand advocate is to lend support and clarity with UCM on branding decisions. Recruitment, anyone willing to participate and take ownership can be a brand advocate. Our phased approach starts with phase 1. It's a marketing symposium that we're having today. And as we continue, it will roll out. So we want your feedback as this progresses. And we're thinking about having certificates and throwing in some OU swag that goes along with that as the process moves forward. So that's really where we've ended up as far as the brand advocate program. Does anyone have any questions? Comments? Thoughts? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank the committee that helped me with this, because it took us a while to get through it, and there was a lot of discussion. So, cool. Okay.
Thanks, Craig.
And if anyone wants a copy of the research, I can get that to them. Just send me an email.
So the bottom line on the Brand Advocates program is more to come. But I wanted to make sure that this group was updated on that, because it has been something we've been talking about for a little while among the campus communicators, and your feedback that you gave to us was definitely important and needed, and I have a feeling that we'll probably be tapping into some of you again just to get your insight on some of the other things that we are planning and thinking about. So I will continue to keep you informed as that goes along. So at this time, I'd like to ask Chris Moberg to come up and introduce our guest speaker, who is a guest to this event, but not a guest to Ohio University. And so he's going to tell you a little bit about Nate Riggs.
Where's my applause? So, based on that little, I had to beg for applause, you won't be surprised to hear that I wanted to do two other quick things besides introduce Nate today. One of those is to give out a few thank yous, but then also to explain a little bit about Nate's talk as before he comes up to introduce himself. So, but for the thank yous, I need you to bear with me for a minute while I tell a couple stories. So, my first thing is I have a survey question of my own. How many of you are smart and old school and traditional and still like to sit down once or twice a month and write out checks and mail out your bills in the mail? And how many of you have sold out and trust technology to do all your bill paying online?
Yes, sir.
So I was being made fun of today in the dean's office. Guys are zip over to the post office because last night was, because hopefully I'm usually good at predicting. Today's pay should hit today after 4 p.m. I'm hoping. Like I mailed out a bunch of bills today, so I'm hoping today, or if not by tomorrow, that our end of the month paycheck. I tell you that story for a reason to set up another technology story. Before I came to OU, I used to teach in the late 90s at a university that must not be named in just north of Cincinnati. And had a really good friend there, and he fought tooth and nail against direct deposit of his paychecks. And whenever you'd ask him about it, he'd go on this five minute speech about, well, the reason why is this. And he would say, because he would get it in campus mail, and he would walk like 3 or 4 buildings across campus to the credit union on campus to deposit. He says, I have this ritual where every month I walk across campus and I ask myself, have I earned my paycheck this month? Right? Well, no. Doesn't stir it off. You need to know, Jim, to know that I'm not. It's actually a cool little ritual, right? And of course, all of us work hard, but some months are better than others. But so he would always say, well, some months I'd be like, as soon as my turn, I would fly up to the window because I know I earned my check that month. And then some other times I would kind of slink up and hand it to him. And
Did he ever
was
give
kind
it
of a
back?
cool ritual. No, he never gave it back. So I hope you feel that's a fun way for me to say, I kind of feel this way about getting credit being co-chair of the Marketing Advisory Committee, because Craig Davis and I have been partners for this advisory committee for almost 4 years now. And I earned my paycheck, which I'm still waiting for the first 3 years.
It's in the mail.
Okay. I mean, it's nice that the president mentioned me and mentioned Craig, but I'm waiting for my paycheck, right? Okay. So I earned it the first 3 years, but I've been a little bit distracted and working on some other things, and I've been sure to share my opinions at the meetings we have, but I really feel like getting credit for this idea for the symposium, and hopefully most of you know that this is just a kickoff. There's going to be a series of professional development events happening going forward to help us work together, do team building, and share ideas and best practices. So this idea came from the UCM team. It came from Mark Crummell, it came from Renee Davis and other members of their team. So I wanted to thank them for coming up with a great idea because it's not my idea. So thanks to the team for that. Let's clap for them. I also want to thank my partner in crime, Craig, because he's definitely been earning his paycheck this past year way more than I have been on
You see that
UCM,
beautiful
right?
timeline he had up there?
Yeah, I know. Look at, I have no slides though either. So. But anyway, so I want to thank those people for doing that. I think that we have a lot of accomplishments, but it's kind of a neat thing to see some of the things we've actually accomplished as an advisory committee, working closely with the team over in UCM the past 3 or 4 years. Okay. The other thing I wanted to do before I introduced Nate briefly was just talk about today's talk. For those of you that filled out your survey, I wasn't one of those people. And by the way, did you notice a correlation between the people that did not fill the survey out and most of us were in the back, in the last row of the room, didn't fill the survey out? But I wanted to let you know that Nate and I talked quite a bit when he agreed to come down here today to give a speech about what he would talk about. I told him it's a tough room because there are some people in this room who 100% of their job is communication and marketing, and they live it every day, and there are others that are doing 9 million jobs, and only 10% of it, or 5% of it, is related to marketing and communications. And many of you might be doing the traditional recruiting for students, for programs, for centers, for the university, but many others are just trying to raise awareness about something. And so I want to make sure you know not to be afraid of the title. The title of today's speech seems like it's very focused just on student recruiting, but as Nate will show you in a few minutes, he's going to walk through tips that can help anybody for any kind of process as you're trying to work people through to attend an event, to raise awareness, to develop the brand through digital strategies. And so I want to make sure you knew that I think you're going to enjoy this speech and that everybody will be able to walk away with some takeaways to apply at their job here and maybe even in their personal life. So the last thing I need to do is to introduce Nate. I'm going to let Nate introduce most of his background, but I first met Nate a few years ago through our sales center in the College of Business. He was volunteering his time back then. He still works with the sales center and does a great job. So my favorite thing to say about Nate, beyond the fact that he's a proud young entrepreneur who owns and is the CEO of the NR Media Group in Columbus and really is a national expert on social media and digital marketing strategies. The part of his bio that I like the most is how much he's giving back to us down here at Ohio University. So he's on our marketing advisory board. He also, even though he gets paid for the class, he has a young family. He comes down one Thursday every week during the school year to teach a really well-received digital marketing class on campus. He's been doing that for 5 or 6 semesters. And I've had in my office conversations about the really neat hands-on things he makes the students do in that class. And hopefully his plan is to bring some of that hands-on experience to this session today. So I really appreciate Nate agreeing to come down and give some more of his time today for this presentation. And thanks on behalf of the College of Business, but other places on campus for all that you're doing to make a difference for our talented team, but also for the students. It's a pleasure. So help me bring Nate up to do his presentation.
Thank you very much. It really is a pleasure, folks. Do you mind if I use the mic? My voice is a little bit hoarse, so I'm going to dance around with the mic a little bit, and hopefully not trip myself. It's be careful what you wish for. No, thank you very much. I really mean this when I say this. I got involved with Ohio University about 5-6 years ago now through the center, and it has become a major part of my life. I knew there was something here when, after leaving some training sessions with the sales center, I'd be driving back up 33 to Columbus, and I was either on cloud 9, busting out of my seams, singing to music in the car, or I was completely down in the dumps because something didn't go right. This university, I didn't go here, but I feel like I've kind of been adopted into the Ohio University family. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I really do thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me today and having me involved. Just a little bit about my background. I've been doing digital marketing for about 13 some odd years now, various different agencies. I've also been on the client side with Bob Evans, had a lot of history in the restaurant industry, and now we own, some of the folks you see in the back are part of my group, NR Media Group in Columbus. We're a small media engineering agency, and we focus on helping brands to evolve, to use all of these new tactics and all of the new forms of media to kind of change their brand and really reach consumers in these new ways, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Is everybody ready? Okay, good. So how many of you have heard this spewed from conferences and other digital marketers? Everybody kind of hinges their hat today on this idea that content is king, and while it's very, very true, I always ask people, does anybody in the room, just by a show of hands or shout it out, who was the first person to say it? Anybody know who coined that phrase? A lot of people, when you bring this up, will think that it's this gentleman, a guy by the name of Joe Pulizzi, who founded the Content Marketing Institute. This is a large association that is based in Cleveland, Ohio. I see some applause. Really great organization. Joe and his team come from a publishing background, and they founded this association. The very first conference that they had a couple years back, Content Marketing World, drew about 700 people. Content Marketing World was just held in Cleveland this past September to the tune of about 3,000 participants from all over the world. The Content Marketing Institute is really an organization that targets a lot of large organizations in terms of developing a professional association and an education network for people that are in corporate situations and really trying to dig in and learn how to tell their story. But Joe is not the person who came up with Content as King. You might be surprised to find out that content as king was actually coined by Bill Gates in an article in 1996 on the Microsoft blog. Who knew? Like way back in 1996, Microsoft was blogging, right? The funny thing is if you go to Bing and you search for Bill Gates and content as king, a very simple Boolean search, you don't really pull up the result anywhere. So let this kind of be a lesson to what search engine you choose to use in your life. But you will also notice that you can, even in these results, see a little bit of the precursors of Twitter hashtags, albeit somebody who was not very pleased with what they were doing. But a little tool you should know about if you're in digital marketing is called the Wayback Machine. Is anybody familiar with the Wayback Machine? Excellent. So the Wayback Machine, if you're ever bored on a Saturday and you're a nerd, you can have a lot of fun with this. You can go to the Wayback Machine and find any site that has ever been listed on the web. It's an archive, and it does prove to you that whatever you put online will be there for eternity, and it can be found with the Wayback Machine. So using the Wayback Machine, I went in and was able to find the original Content is King article from 1996 on the Microsoft blog. And I love how this article opens. It's a little bit dim, but Bill opens the article with, "Content is where I expect much of the real money will be made on the internet, just as it was in broadcasting." And this is a pivotal statement, because for the first time in 1996, somebody is looking at the internet and saying, this is not just about information. This is not the information superhighway. This is a media network. This is a network that's going to contain a lot more than just text and written word. The television revolution that began a half-century ago spawned a number of industries, including the manufacturing of TV sets, but the long-term winners were those who used the medium to deliver information and entertainment. And I think entertainment is that key word there, because if you think back to television and the television networks, just by a show of hands, how many people watch TV for the commercials? Maybe that's a loaded question to a room full of marketers and advertisers. But I, for one, don't. I definitely pay attention to them, but we've all grown up watching programming on TV, watching the content that really keeps us glued to the box, and it's because of that content that we can have value in advertising. And if you think about that, we don't watch for the advertisements. The advertisements are there because we watch. And so the content creates value. But there's a funny thing happening. If you look at primetime television viewing over the last few years, it is very heavily on the decline. And this is across the US and largely across the world. And all the network executives everywhere look at this slide and they start shaking. And they get really upset because their jobs might go away at some point. So why is this? Does anybody have any clues? Social media, I always turn to divine intervention to try to answer these questions. Very popular individual right now, but I really think that there's an illustrative point here. So let's look at the Vatican in 2005, St. Peter's Basilica. Does anybody know what happened in 2005, where this photo was taken? It's an Associated Press photo. This was the funeral of Pope John Paul when he passed away. And if you look, it's a little bit hard to see, but way down in the corner down there, there's somebody with a flip phone. And she's the only one, and she was really progressive for her time. Now let's look at when Pope Francis was actually inaugurated, I don't know if you call it inaugurated, as the Pope. What is the difference? The difference is that today, we have the ability to carry the collective knowledge of the world right inside our pants. How many people have the knowledge of the world inside their pants today? All of you, because chances are, unless you're my wife, you have a smartphone. And all of us do. And we very rarely leave anywhere without our smartphones. We sleep next to them. How many people check Facebook or email when they first wake up in the morning? The hands should go up, and those of you who do not have hands up are probably lying. But it's the truth. These devices have changed our lives and changed culture globally. It's amazing what smartphones have done. We know that in the US, we passed somewhere around 2012, we passed 50% penetration in terms of all the mobile devices out there in the US being smartphones, app-enabled, internet-ready devices. And this trend just keeps going up and up and up. It is very, very difficult to go out and buy a non-smartphone, a dumb phone today. People don't sell them anymore. And so all of these devices will be connected to the internet, let alone things like Google Glass or tablets. Speaking of tablets, we know that tablets are outpacing global computer sales across the world. I, for one, have like 3 tablets in my household. I have an iPad, my kids have Kindle Fires. I've probably gotten rid of about 3 or 4 different tablets. I'm not a huge Android fan. But by a show of hands in the room, how many people have tablets? It's amazing. Suddenly, the way that we access all of the internet has changed very drastically. And what this has done is it's created this fragmentation of the media landscape. So it's not that people are watching less TV. I mean, they are in a sense, but it's not because TV is going away. There's more options on TV, but there's also more places to view online media, online video, online content, things like Hulu, things like Netflix, things like YouTube. So now we have way more options. The traditional American family sat around and media consumption, watching TV was a very passive type of an activity. If you have kids, you've probably seen them tune into their favorite program on Saturday morning, and they get this blank stare, kind of like a zombie, and maybe there's a little drool coming down the corner of their mouth. And that's exactly what we mean by passive consumption. I actually will go home at the end of the night. We work pretty long hours. And going home at the end of the night, for me, I want to sit and I was watching the World Series last night. I turned my brain off. All I was watching was people swinging at pitches, but that was passive consumption. Today, consumption looks much more like this. The era of the second screen, where now we can sit in front of that television and we can have a tablet on our lap or a cell phone, and as we see something on the television, we can look it up on the internet right away. I just did this a couple weeks ago. My parents, for Christmas, they're both huge Fleetwood Mac fans, if anybody's a Fleetwood Mac listener. And Fleetwood Mac is going back on tour. And as we were sitting there watching Sunday morning, I forget what the name of the program is, they did this whole piece on Fleetwood Mac and the history of the band, and then they talked about the upcoming tour. And within a few minutes, I'm on my iPad looking up on Ticketmaster when Fleetwood Mac is coming. Unfortunately, it's like $400 to get tickets in Tampa, Florida, so they won't be getting that for Christmas. But the fact that I saw it on television triggered a habit now, to go in and start to look for more information and move into a consideration phase in the decision cycle. There's an interesting test that you guys can do right now. I would love for all of you to take out your smartphones. Go ahead, take out a smartphone. How many people are Twitter users in the room? Twitter works really, really well for this. So go to your Twitter app and type in the words in parentheses, in search, anyone know, and then put capital A and D and whatever word comes to mind. Maybe you're a hobbyist and you like basket weaving or collecting sports cards or cooking, or recipes. Recipes is always a good one. Or maybe even college admissions. Type in parentheses, anyone know, capital A and D, and whatever term you want after that. And look at what comes up. It's going to probably look something like this. Here's an example on Facebook. My friend Sarah from back home, does anyone know of a company that will come haul away an old washer and dryer for free or cheap? Probably a very similar question to what many of you may have asked on Facebook to kind of your network of family and friends. Within just a few minutes, 15 comments. Stephanie writes, Volunteers of America or Goodwill. I chimed in, call the Habitat for Humanity Restore. They will. Sarah's dad is volunteer. Sarah's my wife, 2 Sarahs. Casey Parsons says AEP. My friend Jeremy also said the Restore. But within a few minutes, this question of does anyone know or anyone know is answered by multiple different people, all within the network of peers that my friend Sarah has on Facebook. The funny thing is the same thing happens on Twitter. For those of you who just searched Twitter, you might, and took the daring move to put in college admissions or going to school, you might have pulled up results like this. Does anyone know if Ohio University is a good school? I'm thinking about going there for grad school. That was yesterday. That's real time. Somebody's asking a question. Now, wouldn't it be interesting if Ohio University could chime in and answer that question? We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Does anyone know where the University of Ohio is? I don't. CC at OhioU. That person was smart enough to actually copy in the at OhioU to try to put that on the radar of Ohio University. Although, if you know the Twitter handle, but you can't look on the website and find the address, you may not get into the school. But you get the point. There are questions by the tens of thousands being asked every minute of every day on social networks, things like Facebook and Twitter and Yelp and a variety of different others. And those are all opportunities waiting for us to tap into them.
The zero moment of truth is a new way of thinking about the traditional marketing model. We all learned marketing by creating pieces of stimulus like radio, TV, and print to drive awareness of our product or service, which would then drive people to the point of sale at retail or at shelf, for example, whereupon hopefully they would choose your product or service, take it home, and have a great product experience. Zero moment of truth is that moment that increasingly is growing in importance that gets in between your stimulus and your point of sale.
To some degree, consumers aren't doing anything differently than they have been doing for years. They have been gathering information about what's going to be the best product and where it is that they should be buying, and they've been trying to learn about that before they make their decision. What has changed is where they gather that information, their ability to easily collect some of that information from a multitude of sources, and their ability to compare from one alternative place to buy versus another.
Today, the #1 spot where shoppers begin their journey is search. 70% of all transactions, we're seeing some sort of pre-shopping take place, even if it's for items that cost $1 or less. Zero moment of truth isn't just a catalyst that starts shopping, but it starts learning. And I think the biggest change that we see is shoppers that walk into every transaction saying, I want to be smarter, I want to be more informed, I want to make better choices, and yeah, I also want to save some money.
We find this zero moment of truth, it applies across all of our customer bases, whether you're buying a big jet engine, whether you're buying a refrigerator, or whether you're purchasing a credit card. It really does apply both in a consumer and in a business-to-business context.
So think about it. It's a natural behavior. It's a way that we all now make our buying decisions almost as second nature. Typically what we would all do is we would try to get some more information between seeing the stimulus and showing up at the shelf. And it's those moments in collection that we call the zero moments that need to be part of your marketing plans.
The examples that we saw were point-blank examples of the zero moment of truth. Whether it's asking a friend for a recommendation on who can pick up your couch, or going out and asking about information on Ohio University. With the internet in the pocket of our pants all the time, we have the ability to ask these questions and tap into the world's knowledge. And a lot of that knowledge comes from the networks of the people around us. And the interesting thing, particularly on Facebook, is that we happen to be friends on Facebook with people that we know, like, and trust. We don't trust businesses anymore. If anybody's read a study called the Edelman Trust Barometer by Edelman, large PR and research agency, very popular study. They do it on an annual basis. But the findings are staggering in terms of how many people distrust businesses, but we do trust our friends. And for the first time in the history of business and marketing, businesses and your friends play in the same medium. We've never seen that before. Your mom has never got on television and done an ad to tell you what she's doing, or your husband, or whatever it is. But on Facebook, if you go to your stream, you can see family member, friend, brand. Family member, friend, brand, whatever that sequence is. That concept is actually called friend of mine awareness. I'll share the book that it's in just a few minutes. But it's really an interesting concept to consider, is that for the first time in history, brands don't know what to do because they have to compete with real people for attention. The zero moment of truth is really where I think there's a huge opportunity for not just recruitment, but marketing in general. Going into, whether it's getting people to events or getting people to come and visit campus or getting students interested in a class. We do this all the time with my class, and you can go to ohiomarketingstudents.com and see where we're blogging there. But this is really what it's about, is meeting the consumer when they are in the consideration phase of their decision funnel and providing them with that information. The interesting thing is that customers, and this study comes from the Digital Evolution in B2B Marketing. It was conducted by CEB and Google. By the time somebody calls to talk to, whether it's a sales rep or an admissions officer or whatever it is, they already have done 60 to 70% of the research on their own through self-service information. The job of the salesperson or recruiter or whatever title you want to put on it is simply now to fill in the rest of the gaps, answer the rest of the questions, build a little bit of trust, and be very, very helpful. Because, and on top of that, not to BS anybody, because that consumer already has the answers that they're looking for. So in order to become more effective recruiters, you will need to build sharper inbound marketing habits. And that is going to be the theme of the presentation today. We're going to get into what those are in just a few minutes. When I talk about inbound marketing, there's this big change that has happened in the last 4 or 5 years. Some people in the more traditional world would call this lead generation. But the general gist of things is that you have outbound marketing or interruption marketing, where you are sending out advertisements and direct mail and out-of-home media and all these things that are meant to disrupt the lives of the people that you want to do business with you or come to college at Ohio University. And yet, that's rude. Not that it doesn't work. Don't get me wrong. Traditional media does work. Advertising does work. But because of the rise of mobile devices and online content, things have changed. It's great for building awareness, but at the end of the day, it's the inbound interest, the hot customers, the people that really want to learn about what you have to sell or offer or teach. That's where everything's going. So the difference is outbound marketing might be things like rented lists or direct mail or cold calling, whereas inbound marketing is really about your online platform. And not just your website, but your dynamic content, your social media profiles and presences, the advertisements that you're putting online. And mind you, putting advertisements online happens to be a lot cheaper than putting advertisements on television or the radio. It's about marketing automation and personalization, not just blasting everybody with every email message that you have, but knowing enough about the consumer to segment them and give them the information that is most important to them at the right time. And there's technology systems out there that make that very, very easy. It's also about digital media engineering. And this is the idea of not just producing online audio or online video or online copy in the form of downloads or blog posts, but really thinking before the process begins and after that process ends. What are those assets, those marketing assets, going to do for your business, and how is all of that going to work in terms of a through flow that gets people to your ultimate objective? That's the ideas that we're going to cover today. I'm waiting for my fun slide, because you have to have at least one animated video slide, right? We're going to talk about inbound marketing habits, how to use the Sharper framework to drive awareness, consideration, and student intent. Now notice that I say intent, not a recruitment, not sales, not acquisition. The internet is not going to get you any more students. You are going to get you more students. The internet is going to drive them through that funnel and have them express intent to build a relationship with you so that you can convince them and take them the rest of the way. And I think this is a big thing for not just colleges and universities, but also professional businesses, no matter what the size is. At the end of the day, sales still happens at the human level. You can use the internet to get somebody into that, unless you're doing something like e-commerce. Then there's self-service information all the way through. But for something like a college or a university or even a business, at the end of the day, the human on the phone has got to close the deal, has got to close the loop. You can't really talk about habits without mentioning the late, great Dr. Stephen Covey, who really kind of, I think, and again, I'm not a scholar, but for me, he opened the curiosity around our habits. At the end of the day, a habit is really a series of complex behaviors that we do so automatically we don't even think about it. A lot of you today probably got in your car, left the driveway, turned the same way down the street. Maybe you're on the phone while you're doing this. You're paying attention to the speed limit, hopefully. Maybe tweeting, don't do that. But all of this stuff happened without you thinking about it. And that is really by habit. The thing that's changed in terms of when Covey was writing about habits versus today is this large metal magnetic donut called an fMRI, a functional magnetic resonance imaging machine. For the first time in the history of habits and research, we can actually see what's going on in the brains of people as they're making certain decisions. And this has really kind of opened up a whole field of research that a lot of you are probably aware of. I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't know. But at the end of the day, no matter what size your brain is, at the end of the day, it is a change in habits that is going to allow you to tap into these new marketing modes and methods and tactics and strategies. And not just organizational habits, not just what you do as a marketing advisory committee or as a college and university or even as a business, but what you do as an individual and how you use the web as an individual. The first step to really understanding how all of these new digital tactics and strategies work is by being a consumer and studying them and looking at that from that lens and learning how to use all this stuff. How many people are not on Twitter today? This has got to change. This has got to change. How could you ever understand how to use Twitter to reach a student if you don't understand how to use Twitter to reach yourself? I worked for a gentleman who all of you probably know at this point, Tom Marquez. He was my boss when I was at Bob Evans. He now is on faculty here. And I'll never forget, I was working at Bob's, and this is about the time of the Penn State scandal, the big blow up, right? Well, any of you who know Tom know that he is like tried and true Penn State fan. I believe he's got alumni there and whatnot. And so he comes into my office one day, and I'm sitting in front of Hootsuite looking at 12 different streams of tweets, and he's looking at me and he goes, Nate, did you hear about Penn State and all this stuff? We named the damn dog Joe Pa. And so he's really been out of shape about this. And so I went to Hootsuite and I typed in #Penn State and pulled up an entire stream of tweets that were coming out from media and students and all the pundits about what was going on at Penn State at the time. And Tom's eyes lit up. And he went, "You mean you can do this on Twitter? You can find information about Penn State?" And I go, "Yeah, Tom, and it's happening here before it's ever going to hit the television." And that was it for him. Then suddenly you could see his click because he looked at something that he cared deeply about, that he was passionate about, and saw the connection in his personal life to how this new form of media might meet that, might provide him some value. All of you can do the same thing. You just need to find what is it that you're interested outside of work, outside of marketing, and figure out where to find that on social media. Another great book about changing your habits comes from David Rock. He's a neuroscientist in Sydney, Australia, and he talks a lot about the difference between habits and cognitive thought in the front part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, right? In terms of the analogy that he uses is it's a stage. So he positions this part of the brain as a stage that has very, very bright lights, as if you were in a theater. And one by one, actors are brought up on the stage, and they do their piece, and they say their monologue, and it creates this entire production that is your life. The kicker with that is that that part of the brain, to power all those lights, takes a lot of energy. Takes a lot of nutrition, it takes a lot of energy, and you can get very tired very quickly. And so that's why a lot of people struggle with social media adoption, is because if you never move social media adoption to the back part of your brain where habits are stored, you're working too hard. You're thinking too hard about it. Executives struggle with this every single day. It takes practice and practice and practice to build the habits to get good at using social media so you don't have to think too hard about it. That's what's going to foster your own personal adoption. You guys have probably read Seth Godin. He kind of demonizes the habit part of the brain, calling it the lizard brain, fight or flight. We won't go there. And then finally, somebody who's doing amazing research in the area of habits right now at MIT is Anne Gabriel. Is it Gabriel? Some of you probably maybe have read her research. Out of all the books, hers was the only one that was not a bestseller. I believe that everything is in the title. in terms of making that list. Not very exciting. A book that all of you might check out on habits was written by Pulitzer Prize winner Charles Duhigg, and this is The Power of Habit. And this is where the real training begins, because in this book, and it's a great book with lots of case studies that if you're teaching on organizational development, you can use a lot of case studies from this book. Alcoa's in there and a few others. But this is the secret sauce. In order to change a habit, you have to first identify the cue. What is the cue that triggers the behavior, right? If a habit is a behavior, then what triggers that behavior? What is the behavior? What is the routine, the series of events, or the series of actions that you take? And then finally, what is the reward that reinforces that behavior? So if you look at habits like this, and you identify things in your personal life that can trigger you, all you have to do is pair them to adoption. Pair them to social media, pair them to Twitter, Facebook, searching social media. So you might get up at regular times of the day to go get that next cup of coffee. Take a sticky note, stick it on the coffee pot, write Twitter, or write search Twitter on it. So that every time you go to get a cup of coffee, you're reminded that, oh, when I do this, I'm going to start searching Twitter just to see if anybody's responded, and then maybe respond back. And if somebody actually responds back to you or mentions you or retweets you, that's a pretty decent reward. You feel like somebody's heard you, and all the chemicals in your brain, oxytocin, dopamine, they start firing off, and you feel really good about yourself. You can take all these ideas and change your own personal habits that will then bleed into how you change the habits of your organization. To become more effective recruiters, you will need to build sharper inbound marketing habits. I keep saying that. Now we're going to get into what those actually are. There are 7 of them. Social search behavior, harness marketing intelligence, answer customer questions, real-time infrastructure, production metrics, editorial roadmaps, and recruit proprietary audiences. This is what we're going to get into for about the next 60 minutes.
Sometimes when you're searching, having information from people you know can be really useful. Like when you're planning a trip. Wouldn't it be great to see recommendations and opinions from your friends and contacts? When you're signed into your Google account and you do a search, you'll start seeing results from people you're connected to on Blogger, Twitter, Flickr, and publicly available sites. Beneath these results, you'll see the names and profile photos of the people who shared or published this information. Let's say I'm planning an upcoming trip, and I'm thinking about going hiking. I see my friend Matt tweeted about his great hike in Yosemite. That looks like the perfect trip for me. Now I need to figure out where I'm going to stay. When I search for campsites, I see my friend Jill's Flickr album from her trip to Yosemite. The view from her campsite looks amazing, so I'll try to stay there. Seeing her photos reminds me that I need to get a better camera for this trip. When I search for cameras, I see a blog result from Ariana. Hovering over her name, I remember that she's a professional photographer that I follow on Twitter. I'll click over to her blog and see what she recommends. Go try it out for yourself. You can get ideas and recommendations from people you trust, right in your search results. If you want even more content and recommendations, you can link to your Twitter, Flickr, and other accounts. It's all the goodness you've come to expect of Google, plus the opinions of your friends, family, and others on the web, just when you need them most.
One of the most significant impacts from social media happened in 2010 when search engines like Google and others started to integrate social signals from these various networks that then impacted what came up when you searched for Google results. For instance, how many people are aware that you can perform an incognito search using Chrome or Twitter or Google? Does anybody do that, incognito search? So when you go into an incognito search, and I believe it's something different in Firefox, you can actually log out and opt out of having social signals affect your search rankings, and the results that you then see on the page from that same IP address, from the same query, will be completely different. When you log back in, those results change, and those results are impacted by the people that you connect with in various different social media sites. When you set up a Gmail address, you are automatically signing up for Google+. Right or wrong, that's how it is. One of the reasons, a lot of people say, why Google Plus? What was the point of Google Plus for Google? Are they going to compete with Facebook? Is this going to be the new next best social network? In fact, there's an argument currently as to, is Google Plus a frontier town or a ghost town? One of the two. Maybe if you're a tech entrepreneur, it's a frontier town, and for everybody else, well, ho-hum. But by signing up for that network, there are fields that say, share your Twitter account, share your LinkedIn account, share your Facebook account, and list all of these accounts on your profile. It was a complete data play for Google. They wanted to pull in data and information from all of those social networks because what Google's goal, their ultimate reason for being, is to deliver each individual in the world the most relevant information for what they are looking for. And Google also understands that, again, thinking of Zmot, that a lot of that information is going to come from the people around you. We all love to take recommendations from our friends. Word of mouth is still the most powerful form of marketing. Google wants to be word of mouth. And so social signals are now pulled into Google. But there's a lot of other tricks you can do with Google right now. With Ohio University, who are your competitors? Who are, if you had to shout it out, who are the top 3 competitors? Ohio State? Anybody? Miami, Ohio State? It's interesting because Google knows Ohio University versus Ohio State, and yet Idaho is number 2. Did you guys know that you compete with Idaho? Okay. Ohio University versus Ohio State football. Try the versus test sometime. Go into Google and type in this company VS and take your fingers off the keyboard, because Google is going to tell you exactly who you compete with by the number of queries that people are searching for against competitors. A lot more, in my mind, a lot more powerful than focus groups, because this is real data telling you what people are looking for in that time frame. There's a lot of different tools for search you can get into. And normally I would go in and try to demo some of these, but I think we'll run out of time. So I'm just going to walk you through this. But advanced Twitter search is something that if you just Google advanced Twitter search, in the old days of Twitter, if you wanted to filter out your searches in tweets, you had to understand Boolean logic. You had to know how to use operators to get in there and filter out the results that you didn't want. And then Twitter figured out that, well, most people don't really want to learn Boolean logic, and so they built a nice WYSIWYG dashboard. WYSIWYG is what you see is what you get. And now you can go in and you can filter by geolocation, you can look at certain profiles, you can search for hashtags. There's about 25 to 30 different ways you can slice and dice the information from Twitter, and this is a very, very powerful search tool. Take away that all of these social networks have a search feature, and that is what I think is their most powerful asset, because you can get in and you can find information in real time coming from real human beings. SERPs is an interesting tool. SERPs stands for Search Engine Results Page, but SERPs actually replaced or is replacing a nonprofit tool that was formerly called Ubersuggest. SERPs, you can take any keyword, you can take Ohio University, you can take college admissions, whatever it is, and enter that into SERPs, and it will give you a list of keywords that are related to that one specific keyword. This is a really, really powerful tool in terms of trying to figure out what is your keyword strategy, what are comparable terms that maybe we're not thinking of in our brainstorms that people might be searching for, and then we can use that to optimize our content, our copy on the site, and try to get ranked for that specific key term or phrase. Google Trends is also an interesting tool. If you go to Google/Trends, this will give you an indication as to what is the volume of people searching for a specific event. So if you are on your phone and you're looking this up right now, type in the word Ebola. Obviously something that's very, very hot topic today. You can trace that back and find out, when did people start searching for Ebola? And what was that media cycle that triggered us to go in and search for that term and drive deeper down into the consideration set? You can also isolate it by geographic area. It's a very, very powerful tool in terms of trying to identify what are hot trends. Now, granted, I've heard some people say that by the time it's a Google trend, it's already too late, you've missed the trend. And that's fair, but at the same time, it does give you an indicator on the history of the trend, and you can start to use that to predict what's coming next. And then finally, Google Correlate is a subset of trends. Google.com/trends/correlate. This is probably my favorite one to play around with, because you can actually search for any term on Google Correlate, and it will bring up the top terms that people who are searching for that specific term are also searching for. So for example, there was a case study I read where they did a case study on pellet smokers. Pellet smoking is a great big phenomenon in the US right now, and people go and they get their pellet smokers and they smoke their brisket on Saturdays and whatnot, and it's great. The company that was doing this figured out that people searching for pellet smoking also had a correlation to the University of Kentucky, and we're basketball fans. And from a marketing standpoint, you can use some of those insights. You can say, okay, if our audience is really interested in this, what else are they interested in? And is there opportunities for co-branding or partnerships or cross-promotions? If you put it in, you might find names of high schools. We've done this in my class a few times, where you put in Ohio University and you will get a list of high schools that people are also searching for when they're searching for Ohio University. Real quick quiz. What is the, oh, and you can't see it because it's a little bit cut off right now, but what is the most important informational piece on this homepage? It's way up at the top there in the search box. Because there's this neat thing, if somebody hits your homepage and they have to search for something, what are they not doing? They're not finding it on your homepage. And you can hook up Google Analytics to the actual onboard search on your website and identify the terms and phrases that people are searching for and get a very good set of insights on what is the type of content that we should have on our homepage. If there's a lot of people searching for it, it means they haven't found it. So we should surface that content and make it more relevant and bring it up. And if you get really tricky with it, you can do things like dynamic targeting, where you can display, using marketing automation tools, you can display a different homepage to different audiences based on certain criteria in their digital persona. All said and done, social search behavior is the first habit. I encourage all of you to think outside of the box of social media and look at all of these major social networks as search engines, because they are data warehouses, and it's searchable data, and you can derive a lot of interesting insights that can drive strategies and get you closer to reaching that target objective.
Capturing open-ended feedback is nothing new to the restaurant industry, but understanding all the commentary, including social media, is nearly impossible. At New Brand Analytics, we use big data technology to help restaurants make sense of all the feedback, no matter its format. The technology is complex, but the process is clear. First, we built a mountain of qualified feedback from review sites, social media, blogs, and every other mention for each of your locations. We then break all the open-ended feedback down into its root pieces and translate it into restaurant-specific data. After breaking it down, we build it back up. Our algorithms organize each insight into one of over 50 restaurant-specific categories, location by location. With this kind of insight, the opportunities are endless. Identify anything from dish preparation issues to loyalty increasing service recommendations, all by geography, individual location, season, and much more. The revenue generating insight is out there for your taking. Start listening like you never could before. For a free demonstration using your restaurant's real social feedback, contact us today.
An entire category of sentiment analysis tools has really built up in the last 3 to 4 to 5 years around using algorithms to go out and scrape social data, not just from social networks, but from blog comments, from forums, from video comments, pretty much anywhere that you can comment on the web. These tools can go out and they can scrape data, and they can tell you, do people feel positive about your brand or this category, or negative about it? New Brand Analytics is one that specifically targets the restaurant industry and is being used by a lot of major restaurants today. Another one that you can check out is NetBase. NetBase Solutions out of Boston. They're actually a client of ours, but they have a little bit different take on sentiment analysis. They do a lot of various different industries, education being one of them, and they take it a step farther. They look at the amount of passion that is related to your brand. So not just positive or negative, but how positive, how negative. And they're doing this through contextual analysis and natural language analysis to look at if somebody is using the word hate, what is the context in which they're using that word in a tweet? Because you might be talking to a friend and they tell you a joke that's off color and you might say, oh, I hate you. Well, you don't actually hate them. It's actually endearing, if you would say that. But some of that gets lost when you're looking at only the text on social media. There's an entire category of tools out there that can send out algorithms, scan all this data, and get you really good insights that's geolocated, that again provides you opportunities and, if anything, helps you identify a crisis before it's going to happen. A lot of companies are using it in that way. Another tool that we use that I absolutely love is Rival IQ. Their Crunchbase profile, they're up to about $1 million in funding right now. They've been around for about 1.5 years, 2 years on the market. This is a competitive analysis tool based on social media and digital presence. So I actually put this slide, and I won't pull it up right now because we don't have time, but I'm tracking the Post, Ohio University College of Business, the Sales Center, Scripps College, Scripps PRSSA, Impressions, Ohio University Advertising, my own class, and I can basically look at this and say, who's got the strongest presence out there? And not just who's got the strongest presence, the most fans, the most followers, but the engagement. What tweets, Facebook updates are people actually engaging with? What is their most popular content? What modes are they using? You'll notice if it's hard to see, but there's a lot of difference in the lines. The red, Ohio University College of Business is doing a lot of video. That is YouTube interaction, or maybe I'm wrong on that, but there's a lot of YouTube interaction around Ohio University. So these tools are out there. Rival IQ, for a full license, I think for an agency with multiple licenses, we pay $3.99 a month. These are not out of reach. You can get a base level license for $99 a month and use this to get really, really good data on the competition where other students may be going, even if it's on campus and between different departments and organizations. The whole point of this is habit number 2. Harness marketing intelligence. There are third-party systems out there, and there are literally over 750 marketing intelligence and operations systems out there. There's some guy out of Boston who does an infographic every year, and every year the infographic gets bigger and bigger. I think eventually we're going to see a lot of consolidation in this market. There will be acquisitions. There will be companies that go out of business. Right now it's the wild, wild west. So be careful when you're looking at these tools. The first thing you want to do is go to Crunchbase and look up their profile, because if they're a startup that started 6 months ago and took on $2 million of funding, probably need some more time to cook. Don't put your eggs in that basket yet, because they're still in their infancy stage. But if they're a company that's been around for a few years and has some high-profile investors, do some digging and see if they're a safe bet. I think there's a lot of opportunity. And the other thing with, as far as the landscape is spreading in terms of the tools that are available, they're becoming commodities. The prices are driving down. The days of these companies being able to charge 30, 40 grand a year for their data and for their tool and system are very short-lived. It's going to be more like 1, 2, 3, 10 grand a year for a major enterprise license.
I'm Bill Warner with Pro Spray Automotive Finishes, and in today's video we're going to be discussing the proper application of clear coats. Application of clear coats are very important. That's the last thing you see in the finish of the paint job. Make sure your base coat has been applied, it's dried properly between coats. Choose the solvent and the hardener for the size of the repair, the area of the repair, and the temperature and the humidity for the day. All good brand paint guns will work properly. These are just tools that, like anything else, a painter will choose based on his own liking, but they'll all give you good results. We're going to put on 2 coats. The first coat will be a nice medium to wet coat.
ProSpray Automotive was a division of U.S. Chemical. Their target market was for what they called jobbers. These were individuals working in automotive detailing shops and body shops, a lot of Hispanic individuals, a lot of blue-collar individuals who were there to help repair your car, and one of those things would be painting the car. And so in order to support the awareness around their product and get people to use it more, they had to educate the audience. But sending trainers out to each one of these body shops, there's thousands and thousands in the US, was very inefficient, very ineffective. And so ProSpray developed an entire video library of information that educated the audience on how to use their various products. The one that we just watched, How to Spray Automotive Clear Coat, almost 80,000 views on YouTube, and that was at the time that this screenshot was taken, so it's a little bit old. It's probably more 80 to 100,000 at this point. But here's the interesting thing. You'll notice in their video library, right, and they've got dozens of playlists with all kinds of different product information, 2 to 5 minute videos that are very instructional, shot in their actual facility up in, I believe it's close to Massillon, Ohio, which is where I'm from. But notice the titles down here: Spray Gun Basics 1, an overview of automotive spraying; Spray Gun Basics 3, how to test your spray gun. Take a wild guess at what U.S. Chemical does not sell. They don't sell spray guns. But in order to use their product, you need to know how to assemble, use, and properly clean a spray gun. And if you can do that, you're going to remember that it was ProSpray that taught you how to do that and gave you a how-to. That's a very, very powerful brand impression to make. Another friend of mine is a gentleman by the name of Marcus Sheridan. If you've been to some marketing conference, perhaps you may have seen Marcus speak. He's a hell of a speaker. He ran a business called River Pools and Spas in West Virginia right at about 2008, 2009. Take a wild guess as to what people were not buying in 2008 and 2009. It almost sunk he and his partner's business. They literally almost went bankrupt. Small startup pool business, no advertising dollars. The housing market crashed. Nobody could get home equity loans. Nobody had money to expend to buy an in-ground fiberglass swimming pool. And so Marcus turned to the internet and started searching on how to fix his problem because they were a few weeks away from closing up shop and going and getting jobs. Stumbled across a little company called HubSpot. Some of you are probably were familiar, and started reading their blog. Long and short of it, Marcus signed up with HubSpot and figured out that if I could just answer the questions that my customers have, and I could do this on a blog, those answers are going to live on the web 365 days a year, 24/7. And so he and his sales team sat around a whiteboard and literally came up with every single question that they had been asked by a customer in a sales call, because some of these sales calls would go 2-3 hours long. Multiple different questions, and they knew the answers to all of these things. They'd been asked them dozens and dozens of times. And so then he and his team divided and conquered, excuse me, and sat down and started typing. And he would go home after being on sales calls and be up till 3 in the morning writing blog posts and doing this over and over and over again. And traffic went up. Today, River Pools and Spas is the #1 fiberglass swimming pool company in the country. They're based in West Virginia. Marcus has a nice life. Now he's got a second business as a marketing consultant. It worked really, really well. But these guys hit the head of the nail. They figured out if we just answer questions, all of our customers are going to trust us. And again, that's really what it's all about. How do you build trust? So let me ask you this. How often do you guys get asked questions by students? Whether it's in your discipline or in class or by students visiting campus who are thinking about going here or maybe tweeting out questions on Twitter, I would be willing to bet quite a bit. Start writing them down. Write down every single question that a student asks you, no matter if it's on social media or face-to-face. Keep a book, keep a log of these questions, because every single question you get asked, you probably have an answer for, and that can be answered in a 500 to 700 word blog post that is keyword rich, that can be hosted on the web 24/7, 365 days a year, and found in Google searches, or recommended by somebody sharing it on Twitter or Facebook. Habit number 3 is the no-brainer habit. Answer customer questions. This is, if you take one thing away from this workshop, this is the most powerful thing that you could do, because that is going straight to the heart and being helpful and finding a way to do it. Use the internet to do this. Don't just keep repeating this over and over again. Capture it, put it online, figure out how to distribute it, and people will come and find the answers, because an interesting thing happened with mobile devices too. Now we can all pick up our phones and we can hit a little microphone button, we can talk to Google. We can ask Google. My kids do this all the time. My son Jacob must know the populace of every single country on the face of the planet at this point from multiple backseat drives. And it blows him away because he asks a question to Google and that nice little lady voice talks back to him and they have a conversation. Creeps me out. Answer customer questions. When you're using things like social media, you have two things you need to consider. Number one, are you going to use this as a telephone? I was in Scotts Miracle-Gro a few years ago, and we're sitting in a boardroom, and we've got some of their VPs in there, and we're talking about the Snap Spreader product they were launching. It was kind of cool. And so we pull up their Facebook page, and there was all kinds of people asking them questions on their Facebook page, and nobody had responded. And some of these posts were 3, 4, 5 days old. And so I turned to one of the VPs, and I said, so you guys have a call center in this building, right? And he goes, yeah. I go, you got procedures for that call center? Like, how long do you let the phone ring? How many rings does it take before you have a call center rep answer the phone? And he goes, oh, no more than 2 rings. That's baked into our process, and we train to that. And I pointed to the Facebook page, and I said, how come you're letting that phone ring off the hook? We didn't get the client. I thought it was funny. Or you can use social media as a broadcast network. You can use this to get out and distribute your content. You can use it for both, but you have to make the decision in terms of how you're going to use it. What are the purposes? I would challenge you all to think, if you go to the College of Business Facebook page, why is it there? What is the purpose? Is it just to distribute the same stuff that's on your website? Because the website's probably doing a really good job of that. Is there a specific purpose for that Facebook page? Or is there a specific audience for that Facebook page? My students hate Facebook. They are all over Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all the other crazy mobile ones that are short form text, right? My generation, and I'm first generation millennial. I was like right in between Gen X and millennial. We're Facebook users. That is my go-to network. That's where all my friends are. We talk there all the time. So what is the purpose for each of those networks? Folks like Jenny's Ice Cream? Okay, so yeah. Jenny's blows me away because not only do they do a great job as a brand, this is an ice cream store. If you go to the one on High Street in Columbus, it could be like February, and you drive past Jenny's, and there's a line around the block of people freezing in their coats waiting for their ice cream. Only if you can get cayenne pepper are you willing to do that. But these guys also do an amazing job on their social media. So at Bowen Close tweets, at Bon Appetit, take a wild guess as to what she might blog about. Just drove an hour out of our way to stop at Jenny's Ice Cream to find out they recently moved back their open time by an hour. Sad moment, because when we're really mad, we put things in all caps. At Bon Appetit, from Jenny's Ice Creams. Sorry about that. The updated hours are on our website and Facebook pages. Did you see the old hours posted somewhere? At Bon Appetit replies, Jenny's Ice Creams, I must have checked the website right before the change. It was maybe end of last week. Still said 11. At Jenny's Ice Cream, at Bon Appetit, terribly sorry to disappoint, particularly since you went so far out of your way. Waiting it out? What's Jenny's doing? Yes, asking questions. A lot of brands and companies would have stopped after that first slide. Oh, unhappy customer, we addressed the need, let's move on. But Jenny's keeps asking questions. At Jenny's Ice Cream, I had to keep on the road sadly, but will keep making my way through the cookbook and hope to try the real thing soon. There are 2 things that happened here. What is the first? An endorsement. They took a bad situation and they turned it around, an unhappy customer, and turned it into a positive situation. But what's the other piece of information that they just found out? She has the cookbook that you can buy on Amazon with all of Jenny's ice cream recipes inside of it. And all the corporate people are going, oh my God, she's giving away all her IP. Well, yes, she is, because Jenny's willing to bet that A, you're going to buy this book and it's going to sit up on your coffee table for the next 6 years and get dust on it, and B, you can't make ice cream as good as she can. And that is the damn truth. The idea here is to be able to do things like that. You have to think operationally. You have to think about the infrastructure. It is not going to be one person, one intern, one student sitting there in front of a dashboard all day, because if that is your plan, they will turn over faster than you can guess. It is a horrible job. I did it. I was at Bob Evans. I managed all the social media. It wasn't fun. But what is the infrastructure here? Who is doing it? Is there a team of people? At Jenny's, they have a scheme where they have 4 or 5 people behind the counter, and they all take turns. There's an iPad or a phone or some device behind the counter, and then they all take shifts. And when somebody's getting somebody ice cream, somebody else is checking the feed and responding to guests. And they have an unusually high volume of people that reach out to them via social media because they're a very popular brand. But they build that advocacy. We've talked a little bit about advocacy, right? This is advocacy. Right? When you're talking to your guests and you're talking to students and you're talking to prospects and you're responding to them and you're giving them the time of day, that creates a brand impression. That says, you know what, this company, this college, this university cares. They care about what I think. They care enough to respond. And that is huge, because that's what creates the stories that people share, especially if you're high level. Think about what if the president of the university or the top dogs, whoever they are at the university, were responding to students one by one. And you could go and you could see on their bio that this is somebody who's really high level at Ohio University. That leaves a huge mark. Same thing for CEOs of companies. We've seen a lot of social CEOs rise up. Dan Kim is one of them from Red Mango. I like ice cream and frozen yogurt, if you haven't been able to tell. But Dan Kim does this. Millions and millions of Twitter followers. He responds to as many guests as he can, has private conversations. The actual Red Mango Twitter account, 50,000 followers. Nobody cares. They all want to talk to Dan. Part of this, too, is really looking at getting outside of the intern. Now, this is an opportunity, I think, for students to engage. But if you are serious about doing this, it's time to hire a professional who is really, really focused on social media, somebody with a couple years of experience and also understands branding and business as opposed to just being really technically savvy. University of California is doing this right now. I pulled this screenshot off of LinkedIn yesterday. You can go to LinkedIn, you can search for education jobs, put in social media manager, content manager, you pull up a whole list of universities that are already doing this. Is Ohio University doing this? Do you want to compete? Then you should be. The other thing you need to think about is insourcing versus outsourcing. This is a study from Content Marketing Institute, B2C. In terms of the businesses they surveyed, most companies are either in-house or doing a mix of both. I would not recommend outsourcing your social media to a firm. I run a firm that does this stuff. I don't recommend that you outsource managing your Twitter account to us or anybody else, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to respond quickly and leverage real time, and that subject matter expertise lives inside this university. So the best people to be able to respond are people that are here. Now, you can go to an agency and have them train people, or you can have an agency manage your distribution, but at the end of the day, that interaction that you saw in Jenny's, that has to come with inside these 4 walls.
Content marketing metrics should cause you to have an action, not just a reaction. Too many times I see metrics that come through that simply give a response like, oh, this is great, or oh, that's horrible. To me, that's not a real true metric for content marketing. When I see a metric or some sort of analysis of the content that we've created, I want to make sure that I can do something as a result of what I see. So I think this is the case where less is more. I also think with any content marketing metric, you need to make sure that everybody within your organization, all the way up through your leadership team, understands the analysis that you're doing and can see the metrics and can consume the metrics in an easy way so they can understand why you did what you did and what you're doing to hopefully improve on your content marketing efforts.
OpenView Partners is a VC firm that funds a lot of tech startups, and they're actually content marketing award winners year after year after year because they have the OpenView Labs, which is their content blog targeting an audience of startup entrepreneurs to teach them how to run businesses. And it's become very, very wildly popular. but they're doing a lot with metrics on their blog. And screenshots you're seeing again, there's a variety of different tools out there, HubSpot being one of them, Marketo, Infusionsoft, a variety of these things. If Ohio University is not using one of these marketing automation tools today and a larger system, it is definitely worth investigating it and checking it out. Now, you can do this in what is called the Franken system approach. I've adopted that term from Dharmesh Shah, who is the CTO of HubSpot. But it was this term that suddenly described what all of us marketing agencies had struggled with for years and years. You go to something like WordPress or even Joomla or any of these other content management systems, and now we have plug-in applications, right? There's all kinds of little separate applications, each that have a very specific function. And you can cobble them together to make this Frankenstein monster that walks around and captures leads, and you can do it. It can work. And it's very low budget to do that, but you will end up spending the money and the time it takes you to manage it, fix it, and maintain it. Or you can spend the budget on going with a system that has all of that built under its house. It has one database with all that information, and you can leverage that information in a lot of different ways. At the end of the day, there's really 4 different types of content marketing metrics, and there's a lot of argument about this. Some people in the industry will call these different things, but this is the way that I see it. Channel metrics are basically your in-system metrics, so things like Facebook likes, comments, anything that is native to a social network or a system that is how that data is measured. That would be your channel metrics. And so you can get things from channel metrics like engagement, like awareness, like activity. There's a lot of meat in that. Consumption metrics are really not just people who are aware of your content, but who's actually reading your content, right? Is this downloads, page views, time on site, bounce rate in your Google Analytics? How long are people staying on your content, and are they actually reading it, or are they just retweeting it and moving on? Because a lot of people retweet stuff they don't actually read. It's terrible. Syndication metrics, how far is that content going? How is it spreading across the web, and can you track the different places where it's showing up and the different people that are reacting to it in those environments? And then finally, your business metrics. And these are, in our world, called your KPIs. You know, for you, maybe it's the number of students that come into the university, or the number or class attendance. There's probably a variety of these, but these are your business standard metrics. All of these relate to each other. But in the center is the most important piece, and that is production metrics. Because if you don't build it, they absolutely will not come. You have to be out there actively producing content on an ongoing, regular basis. The days of campaign marketing are over. There are no campaigns anymore. It's programmatic. This is an ongoing effort that you'll never be done. Once you start, it will go forever, unless you want to be done as a business. So here's how you measure production metrics. This comes directly from my class. Content output divided by production goal times 100 over a specific time period, expressed as a percentage. You are basically giving yourself a grade card. You set a production goal. Maybe we're going to produce 365 blog posts this year, 1 per day. We're going to produce 4 ebooks. We're going to produce 100 videos to populate playlists on our YouTube channel. And you figure out what those goals are. And then you break it down by quarter. And then you break it down by month. And then you assign yourself a grade. You measure, here was what our goals are. Here's our quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily goals. And have we hit those goals? And I will guarantee you this. If you can score above an 80%, 80 to 90 to 100% for a period of 90 days, your content program will be up and moving and the machine will be built because you have changed the organizational habit. And that's what it takes. Set yourself goals, produce the content, do it for a period of 90 days, and you won't have to think about it anymore. It'll be a habit. And I know this because I've worked with multiple businesses where we've put this system in place, and I think my longest running one is a company in called Incept in Canton, Ohio, that has now been running their content program for about 4.5 years. And they've never blinked an eye after they got through those first 90 days. The first 90 days are critical. Here's how you measure it. So habit number 5, focus on production metrics. Don't get me wrong, all the rest of these metrics are important, but it doesn't matter. Don't start looking at them, because if you don't do the work first, you're never going to get the results. It's the same thing with ROI. Everybody wants a return, but nobody wants to make the investment, right? So focus on what you're going to produce, and that should be the first things that you guys try to achieve, and if you do that, everything else will come. Another piece of this infrastructure and metrics piece is that you have to identify who are the right people for the right roles in your organization. This graphic comes out of a company called Skyward that I've done some webinars with, and these guys have a content publishing platform that I'm a huge fan of. It's very good for content workflow. But they divide it into a couple different ways: content creators, technologists, editors, and content strategists. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to fill in students in terms of content creators and maybe even editors. Scripts is pretty good from what I hear. But who's going to set the strategy? Who's going to design and manage the plan? Then who is the team of people that are going to execute that plan? What shifts are they on? What are their individual responsibilities? All of this infrastructure stuff needs built before you're ever going to be successful with content or inbound marketing. The gentleman I'll introduce in just one second came up with this model, and I think this is one of the most pivotal things from his book. There are 4 types of content participation that are really working very, very well today. The first being circumstantial participation. This is probably the most popular approach in terms of what I like to call the SWAT team. So you will have a group of individuals, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 people, that are the core marketing team around creating content. And they are not going to have all the answers to every question that a student is asked. You might need to talk about the engineering department in your content, and a bunch of marketers don't know that much about engineering, but you can send one of them with an audio recorder or a video recorder to find that subject matter expert, capture the content from somebody who may or may not be comfortable being in writing or being in front of a camera or producing that content themselves, and you can bring that back and you can format that content. And if you're going to do that, capture long form. Record audio or video, because if you have a 30-minute recording, that's approximately 25,000 words if you're talking at an average pace. You can repurpose a lot of those words. You can load it up into SpeechPad, you can get a transcription, spit back out, technology will do that, and then you can use that to whittle it down and edit it into multiple different blog posts, tweets, updates. We'll talk about atomization in a minute. There's voluntary participation. This is something that a lot of companies have been doing, where they simply say, by a show of hands, who would like to be on the content team? And a lot of people get really excited and raise their hands. What's the problem with volunteerism? It's hard to make it stick. You volunteer and it sounds great and you feel really good about it, and 3 weeks later you get really busy, and what's the first thing to go? You're going to miss a deadline. So not that it can't work, but it's a little bit challenging. Assisted participation is what a lot of larger companies are doing in terms of, Dell is an example of this, I believe Microsoft is an example of this, where they actually have IEPs in place for individual employees, where they will identify through some type of personality testing, and you can use MBTI. Sally Hogshead has an interesting tool out there called the Fascinate. I forget what the actual tool is called, but you can identify what are your core strengths. I know you guys use Gallup, Strengths Finder, so that might be a clue, but you can identify what are your strengths. Maybe somebody is a very good writer, somebody's got a very good personality and is comfortable with being in front of a camera, somebody else is a strategist and is very good at organizing things or coming up with a plan, and then there's your project manager types that are good at executing all the details. So you can identify where people fit and then give them an individual plan to try to extend their capabilities in that area. And this is where I think that ultimately this is where everything's going to go, because we are seeing things like social media and digital now become a skill as opposed to a job. You know, 50 years ago, typing was a job. How many people don't know how to type? Today, everybody types, right? That's just become a skill that you need to participate in any business, university, whatever it is. Social media, digital, that's all going to move along the same continuum. Mandatory participation is what OpenView Venture Partners does, where the CEO literally went to a conference, met Joe Polizzi, was so inspired, came back, bought the book, and said, guys, this is going to be part of our culture. And that's a really tough thing to pull off. And it doesn't come without incentives either, because all of those employees who are creating content, they're measured. That's part of their job description, and they're either marked up or incentivized, and their bonuses are tied to that. So that's a little bit harder one to pull off, but these are 4 models that you can pull from this gentleman's book. A friend of mine and somebody who's really inspired me in my career is Jay Baer. Utility is available in the bookstore here because it is one of the books that I teach in class, and I encourage all of you to read this. It is a very, very good book. one of the key tenets from the book is that your marketing should be so useful that your customers are willing to pay for it. And if you think about that, that's a little bit weird, but that's really where we are, is that we don't have to market products anymore. We have to market content, because if we market products, we come off as too salesy and we push and we breach that trust. But if we market the content that informs, we're kind of sneaking in the back door. But it's in an okay way, because you're helping make somebody smarter. You're helping meet a need. There's a few tenets in the book that I just want to give you kind of a key to. Number one is self-service information. We've talked a lot about this today, but this is really the idea that, again, 60 to 70% of information is found before they ever talk to somebody on the phone, so you have to put that information up there and make it self-service. And there is a stop to this. If you're trying to close a deal, self-service goes away. That final step in that decision funnel is talk to a human. Another idea is radical transparency, and this goes back to that IP discussion with Jenny's. Throw it all out there, because there are no secrets anymore. And there is something to be said about your brand, the impression that it creates if you let people behind the scenes and see the inner workings of what's going on. There's a lot of trust that is built by exposing yourself. The business term I always thought was funny is the open kimono thing. I have this like picture of a flasher running around and doing this. And the other piece of this is real-time relevancy, and we've seen this with Jenny's, we've seen this with a couple of the other case studies, but how do you cue into somebody who is asking a question or has a need at the moment that they have that need and be there to intercept? And it really, if you picture an interception happening in the football game, there's a lot of power in real-time relevancy. Here's another key. I've mentioned the decision funnel a lot. Well, this is how the decision funnel fits into content and inbound marketing and social media. Awareness being the top of the funnel. The consumer or the student needs to be aware of your brand. They have to know you exist before any of this starts. And so things like blogging and search engine optimization are very good at doing that. Media content, online advertising, social media, leveraging that real-time relevancy, and even things like public speaking. Go out there and they raise awareness for a brand or an opportunity. The end goal in that funnel is to get the subscribe, to get the user to read your stuff, like it so much that they express some type of a linear affinity with your brand and say, you know what, I'm going to opt in because now you can send me all of this good stuff that you're putting out. If you are not focused on how many subscribers are on your email list today, that is the first place to start. Build up that email list. Consideration phase, the consumer or the student is looking for more information. They now want more details. They're aware of your brand. They maybe have received about 5, 10, 20, 100 different blog posts. Maybe they're a freshman and they're moving their way up to their senior year. And now they want to find out more. It's getting ready to start visiting colleges. And so which ones should I go to? So things like ebooks, book chapters, worksheets, case studies, examples, stories, guides, maps. There's all kinds of longer form content that you can produce and with a marketing automation system, put up on your site and get them to click a banner and hit a form and give you information and download that, and in trade for their information, download that piece of content. And they can do that over and over again. And this is why I stress marketing automation. All marketing automation systems will have what is now kind of coined as smartphones, forms, or dynamic profiling. That's a word that gets tossed around a lot, where if you're going to download 5 or 6 pieces of information, I'm not going to hit you with a 15-field form every single time. But if I've got a smart database, I can get that form and I can say first name, last name, email address, how old are you, where do you live? You give me that information, you can take away our brochure or our case study or whatever that is. The next time you come back to the site, now you want to download a map of campus or the hot places to eat on Court Street. First name, last name, email address. What's your family income? Have you applied to a university yet? You can change the questions the form is asking to ask for additional pieces of information that lead to segmentation that allows you to personalize messages to even down to individual students, if not individual groups of students. That is the mid-funnel goal, is you are trying to get the audience to download, to take something away and give you information in return. The bottom of the funnel is really about human contact. So I'm aware of your brand, I've taken all this information, and I really feel like I know what Ohio University is about. Now I want to schedule a visit. I don't want to do that through a self-service information. I want to pick up the phone and call somebody. So things like request a consultation, request a visit, request a demo, request a proposal, attend an event. These are all calls to action that you can put on a website to get somebody to click in, leave information, and then within 24 hours call them back and have that conversation on the phone. It's also great for qualification. It also allows you to know who is serious and who is not. One of the other things I want to mention is this idea of atomizing your content. When you atomize something, you break it down into its smallest parts, its smallest particles. Well, how many times do we see tweets like, build your natural hair business with online content? Check out our free ebook. Check out our latest blog post written by our CTO. Check out our list of Kindle ebook bargains, most are less than Euro 199. I don't want to check out anything. Give me something interesting. So we're writing a book right now called the Video Engineering Playbook. It'll be out in a couple months. One of the stats that we discovered was from a study by Cisco that stated that 72% of all internet traffic by the year 2018 will be related to video or streaming media. So we put out one tweet for that Cisco ebook that said, hey, check out Cisco's new ebook on the future of video. And then we took that stat and we put that as the tweet copy. Take a wild guess as to which one got retweeted for days and days and days and days. This is the idea of atomizing your content. If you're going to create this longer form content or take a 30-minute recording or a podcast or whatever it is, there are bite-sized nuggets inside of that content that you can use as fuel to get the distribution moving and get people to click on those links, rather than just, hey, check out our new brochure, hey, check out this ebook, hey, check out this video. Find me that interesting nugget inside the video that piques my interest and gets me to click. Habit number 6 is about editorial roadmaps. All of these things roll up into what is your editorial roadmap for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 5 years. Break it down at a weekly basis, but look at your production metrics and then build an editorial roadmap so you at least have a path that you're going to follow. And be ready to change. It's a very dynamic environment, especially online, so you can't just build a plan and go with it. You have to be able to pivot as you progress along that plan. Jeremiah Oywing was formerly with Forrester Research, really smart analyst and media pundit. He founded the Altimeter Group, which is another really great research firm with Charlene Lee, who was also a Forrester. Apparently something happened at Forrester. Because of all of the brands are jumping in and spewing content, there's a deafening noise. So the one way to cut across that is to advertise and make your content shine higher. And that is the reality. These networks, these social networks, are not here for kittens and kumbaya. They are ad-supported, publicly held networks that are there to increase shareholder value and make a bunch of people money. And that's what the purpose is. And so in order to participate on these, you have to pay to play. That is how they're designed. If you're not going to pay to play, you're never going to get the results that you're looking for. Freemaxis is a large CPA firm that does a lot of tax accounting for major businesses. And ironically, accountants are big on Twitter. Who knew? I mean, apparently if you're crunching spreadsheets all day, you got to have some fun sometime. But they do a lot of different things on Twitter. Take a wild guess as to which one is the advertisement. Can anybody point it out? It's the top one. Free copy of the Commercial Finance Association Fraud Awareness Program Workshop Keynote Report with a bit.ly link. By the way, bit.ly is a free service that you can use to track links if anybody's not using that. This is a promoted tweet by Freed Maxick. Notice that they're promoting a tweet that is atomized. Here's a free copy of the report. I probably would have taken a stat and not wrote that copy. But now you can click through and you can land on this fun landing page where they are capturing your information, driving you downward into the middle part of that funnel, and giving you a free download in return for your information. And then once you've got your information, they're probably going to start sending you personalized emails. There's another tactic out there that I think could be very effective for a high university, and that's the use of Twitter cards, because there is a huge student population that are very avid about using Twitter. And so Twitter figured this out and said, ooh, we could produce ads that allow you to sign up for an email list right from Twitter. And these are very inexpensive ads. They're called Twitter cards, and they're part of a bigger picture.
For over 70 years, TV has offered major brands one of the largest, most powerful tools to tell their story. The commercial. but when the commercial ends, so does the story. What if TV commercials were just the beginning of the story? And what if you could continue that story on Twitter, where TV's biggest fans not only make your story their own, but share it with others? Let's see how TV and Twitter now work together. Hypothetically, let's say Trident has a new TV ad campaign that just launched nationwide, airing on multiple TV shows across many networks. This is where Twitter's TV ad targeting begins. Our technology intelligently watches and catalogs all the shows and times where the Trident commercial aired. At the same time, it listens to Twitter and recognizes all the people tweeting about those same shows. From this, Trident now has the option to target promoted tweets to viewers who likely saw their commercial. For Trident, this means being able to start a message on television and continue it with a Vine, embedded media, or one of our new lead generation cards. With TV ad targeting from Twitter, a brand story doesn't end on TV. The story continues on Twitter.
I heard you guys are working with a new media buying company. If they haven't brought this up yet, bring it up for them, because they should be doing this. Your audience is very much on Twitter for new students. And if you're going to run radio or television, you can use these hashtags to your advantage and close the loop. It was about 3 or 4 years ago now that Twitter announced that they had a major partnership agreement with Nielsen, and then shortly thereafter bought a small startup company, I forget the name of it now, Trender I think it was, Trender TV, that was television analytics using Twitter data. And so this started the Twitter TV Nielsen ratings, which have been used in major popular shows from the NFL to American Idol to The Voice. The Voice, I think, did it better than anybody else, where they had an actual social media host, Christina something, I'm not into pop music, but she would go out and she would interview their stars on the show, and then she would take questions from the hashtag and actually engage the star and ask the question, and then turn to the camera and speak at name directly to the person and talk to them from TV. Now think about how cool that is if you're a student or you're a young person and there's somebody on TV talking directly to your @Twitter name and you just got like 10,000 followers. This is something you can use. Hashtags are a great way to slice and dice Twitter, but you don't have to do it on TV. How many people have ever tweeted at #AthensHappens? Anybody know about that one? I see Nate Marshall's hands like, yeah. There are hashtags that are used regularly on campus by this body of 25,000 plus millennials every single day. And there's enough volume just in Athens around these hashtags that you could run advertisements to them. There's ways that you can hack all this stuff and make it fit to whatever your profile is. You don't necessarily have to buy television dollars. Habit number 7 is about recruiting proprietary audiences. A proprietary audience may be a little bit of a misconception, because at the end of the day, you don't really own your audience on Facebook or Twitter or any other social network. Those social networks own those audience, and they let you see them so you can pay them money to get in front of them. Same thing with like Facebook posts. You can now pay to get in front of a certain percentage of the fan base. That was by design. We saw organic reach go from 18% to 9% down to 1% to 2% on average over the course of 3 or 4 years, largely because they went public and bombed and they had to do something to build it back up. Proprietary audiences, though, give you a chance to remarket to these audiences, whether it's on your email list or any social profile. Ultimately, you want to try to drive them into that email list, because you're going to have open rates of 30 to 40, maybe 50%, click-through rates a lot higher, 2, 3, 4%. It's going to dwarf anything on social media, but you can use social media to populate that marketing database, and you can do a lot more with it. Another great book is by Jeff Rohrs, who's the Vice President of Marketing Insights at ExactTarget. If you want to learn about proprietary audiences, this book is based off of a multi-year global study across not only their clients, but outside organizations as well. A lot of really good information and data. Some of it may be applicable in your classes as well. At the end of the day, the long-term winners are those who use the medium to deliver information and entertainment. And that is exactly what you as Ohio University should be doing. I encourage you to build your own sharper habits. Social search behavior, harness marketing intelligence, answer customer questions, that is the big one. Real-time infrastructure. Think through who is going to be doing the work behind the scenes that makes real-time possible. Because I think a lot of people just look and say, oh, we can do real-time too, but they never think, what if somebody's got to prove something? How fast is that going to happen? Production metrics are very important, editorial roadmaps, and recruiting proprietary audiences. And with that, I want to thank you very much for having me present today, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of Ohio University. We'll be hanging around a little bit too, so if you think of any, we'll be out in the hall.
Yeah, we now have a 10-minute break.
Give me a U! U! Give me a C! C! Give me an M! M! Give me a U! U! What's that spell? U-C-M-U! Hi! Welcome back from your 10-minute break. You got a pep rally, a little mini pep rally, but a little one. We are here to introduce UCM University, as you couldn't tell by your cheer. UCM University is going to be a series of workshops, courses that are designed to give you an overview of how to use the Ohio brand and some of the tools that can help to make your own communications better. So rather than me going through all the courses and workshops that we offer, I'm going to let the workshop leaders just give a little bit about what they're about.
All right, I'm Jenny Daniels, Client Services Coordinator. And every great program starts with orientation. Come with me and learn about the faces and services of UCM and some of the resources available to you. Woo.
Yay, Jenny!
Didn't she do a great job?
Yeah.
I'm Mark Crummell.
Go
Okay, quiet down. Is branding important?
Yes!
I love that answer. Is it related to Ohio University?
Yes!
Yes.
There's always the one guy.
Our workshop will take you through the greatest ever branding exercises that you've ever heard of. Actually, it's just a basic overview of what branding is and how it relates to Ohio University. Hopefully, participants will be able to not only figure out how that applies to their unit, but also how their unit works in tandem with Ohio University's branding. Yeah, thank you.
I'm George Mozzie. George Mozzie.
George.
Managing editor of Compass. Everybody heard of Compass? Compass, official news information site for Ohio University. And I'll be the leader on navigating Compass. You sign up for that, we'll teach you how to post a Compass, understand the audience on the website, Compass, and all kinds of interesting things with Compass. So everything from in and out. We got a style guide.
Compass.
Okay, I'm Andy Wall, a video producer.
Andy.
I'm sure many out there of you would love to learn how to make better photos and videos for your social media streams, right? Who has Well, come learn from our video and photo team, and we'll give you expert tips how your photos and videos can be as good as ours. Well, maybe, but we'll help you get there. Come check out the video and photos.
Nate wants you to take better pictures and videos for content.
Yes. We have job
I heard
security.
Woohoo! Hi, I'm Katie Carranza. I help lead the Managing the Media workshop. This is just an introductory class to give you some general tips on how to interact with media and also to educate you about the resources we have to support you when
when you get calls from the media.
I'm leading the Designing with Templates workshop, and are you ever tired of recreating the wheel constantly?
Yes!
It's the worst!
Always.
Transpac will help you avoid this duplication of effort by giving you access to Ohio branded templates. So, coming soon to a campus near you. I'm Stacy Stewart. And I'm doing the departmental specific brand graphics. Right?
We think so.
Anyway, at this workshop, we will enable your students and staff to implement the department brand while still promoting the overall Ohio brand.
I'm Renee. I am facilitating a workshop which is a media interview practicum. It's one of our advanced courses. You gotta have some prerequisites before you get there. Basically, it's going to help you not look bad, represent Ohio University on camera, or with the media. I want to make sure that you know that when you come to this workshop, you're going to leave being a better communicator. So I know they talked about some workshops that they were doing, but this is the one you need to. Hey now, come on. It's going to help you in all of your communications, not just with the media. So let's hear it for the media interview practicum.
So what is branding?
Let's start at the very beginning. This is Branding 101. So can we hear from you guys? What is branding?
Identity.
What?
Identity.
Identity.
What else?
It's like the feeling and the image that you want your audiences to think of first when they think of you.
Anything else?
Message.
What?
The message.
The message.
Association.
Attitude.
It's actually being perceived as the only solution to a problem someone has.
And everything that you guys mentioned is all involved in this definition.
So when you think about branding, let's take it to a personal level. How do you brand yourself? In other words, if you let perception dictate not only like where you work or where you shop and things like that, but also where you live and you personally, then the perception is going to be whatever you put out there. But if you take ownership of it and craft messages and carry yourself in a certain way as you'd like to be perceived, that's taking care of the brand.
But I want to go back to this. Being perceived as the only solution to a problem someone has. The word problem, does it seem kind of negative to you guys? Yes. The word, it's problem, right? Mm-hmm. And actually that's how a lot of people see branding, in a negative light. We did some research several years ago that many of you are familiar with, and we asked people their opinions about branding, and we got some interesting things back. We are the best kept secret. This is speaking of Ohio University. Why do we need branding? Okay, what else? We don't look or sound like an organization. So we don't look or sound like an organization. We've got all these colleges, all these schools. Why do we need to have a unified branding? There's no time to develop a strategy. We talked about this earlier today. There are a lot of you who are doing 47 different jobs in the time that you have for one job. And you know how important your time is. There's no money for research. This stuff takes money, it takes budget, and that would take money from other really important stuff that we're doing. We've never had to worry about branding before. Do we have students at Ohio University? Yeah. We've had students for how many years?
Something math, yeah.
Some math, I don't know. Math people in the room? Who goes? 210 years we've had students. So why do we have to have branding if people already know who we are? We've never had to worry about it before.
And we don't have an elevator speech.
Oh yeah, we don't have that either. Because if we're not unified, we don't have one statement that we can say, oh yeah, Ohio University is XYZ, and everyone knows that, and everyone uses it. We don't have one of those.
So why branding is important?
That's the negative part. And we know it's important, right? Yes, this is the part where you're
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So if I'd ask you if, oh, sorry.
No, we talked about the
she took my
negative
line.
stuff. I took
Yeah.
his line. We talked about the negative stuff. Now we need to talk about why it is important. If I were to go around and single you out and say, Kim, is branding important? You'd probably be like, yes. But in the back of your head, you might see all those negatives that we just talked about. The whole, I don't have time. I don't have the money. I can't. So we have to convince you that branding is important.
So basically, we live in a branded world, if you haven't gotten that so far. Because the image doesn't appear so well, I think you can make out this up at the top. It says CBS Mondays. This is actually a barf bag.
It says
that
barf
they-
out loud funny.
that they put on
guarantee.
airlines, for American Airlines. This one you probably recognize. This is actually a crosswalk that's been painted on. And this down here totally is obliterated, but it's, and it looks like oranges with Tropicana logos on it, but they're actually eggs. So that they're doing a little bit of co-branding. They're trying to make you think about breakfast as you're going through the buying eggs. So thinking of brands, how many of these do you recognize?
Anyone?
All of them?
Anyone?
How about this one in the left-hand corner?
That was Obama's.
Listen together. How about this one in the right here?
It's that one. Come on now.
How about this one?
Hershey's.
You guys are pretty good. Bridgestone tires.
Yeah. What's the puzzle piece? Does anyone know? Autism Speaks. Very good. Here we go. Look at that. Very good for those of you who got these. 10 points.
Droid. Did you guys recognize the
Droid, the
droid in the
little
corner?
robot. My children know the little robot. They don't know what he does or what he represents, but they see the little robot. They're like, beep, boop, beep, boop. That's just an aside.
Wait, how do they go again?
Beep, beep, boop.
So brands help consumers choose.
Not only do they help you choose, but it's something that we can put our trust in. That Bridgestone tires, Mark, can you go back for just one?
Sure.
That guy right there, you can see him. He's kind of right out, right? They wanted to convince us of what? Does anyone know anything about Bridgestone? Not really.
To convince us that they weren't Firestone.
Ah! So, all these companies' brandings, they're helping us choose their products, right? They're helping us navigate this giant landscape of products that are available to us by being the best out there. They've got the best car, they've got the best burger, they got the best phone. They have given you a clear picture of who they are, or at least who they want you to believe they are. They've given you something to identify with, and by doing so, they hope that you'll gravitate towards their product. And a lot of times, and Nate mentioned this in his, they will even make you want to pay more for it just because of what they are. Take this guy in the bottom here. I don't know if you can see this picture's kind of bad, but do you see what he's holding up there? He has got the latest iPhone. He looks like he's just ecstatic. The other two of those are probably staged, but this guy, you can tell it's for real. He's triumphant, he's ecstatic. Can you tell me why?
You got the first one.
How many of you have iPhones? How many? There you go. Raise them up high, be proud. Why do you have iPhones? Why did you pick an iPhone? Oh my goodness. Start deep for people over here. He said branding. Who else? Why did you pick? Give me a reason that you picked Apple, the iPhone specifically. What?
Apple.
Okay. For the company.
But what's that make you feel like? Is there something you associate with it? Really cool.
Really.
User experience.
Ease and elegance. Down here, Kelly said Mac makes more sense to her. Anyone else?
It has a whole line of products, and there's so many people that have Mac products, they interface better with each other in business.
Absolutely.
So brands build identity. And speaking of Mac, I'm sure you can remember the Mac advertising campaign. PC's kind of a straight up guy, and Mac's a little bit more creative, kind of cool, no hassles. What'd you guys think about that when you saw that commercial? Like,
I was glad I wasn't a PC.
you were glad you weren't a PC? How about people who are PC users? What'd you think about that commercial?
On behalf of all PC users, because while I have an iPhone, I use my PC. And don't be judging. And I was actually a little bit offended by this commercial. Just a smidge, but I remembered it very well.
So how many in this group are on PCs, and how many?
PCs represent.
Yeah, and how many are on Macs? Okay, well, I'm on one right now. So what this did was, this made Microsoft take a closer look at what their products were, and now they're rivaling Apple in the marketplace. There's iPads made by Microsoft, phones, other devices. So I think this kind of gave them a kick in the teeth moving forward.
Branding, when it's taken seriously and done well, like right here, it establishes a company's or an institution's voice or its personality. Without a good brand, no one knows who you are. And if no one knows who you are, then how can they take advantage of what you have to offer?
Pretty darn hard.
4 reasons to value our brand.
Is this me?
Yeah,
Is that me? All right.
doesn't matter.
So we know why branding is important, right?
Yes.
Right. So let's talk about 4 reasons to value the Ohio brand, or our brand. Having a unified brand clearly communicates who we are. It differentiates us in higher education. It ensures consistency. And last but certainly not least, it promotes unity.
So with that in mind, a little closer to home, our messaging and positioning statement for Ohio with those 4 reasons we just talked about.
Talked about why it's important, but do you guys know what it is? Branding is important at Ohio University, but do you know what Ohio University's branding is? Anyone? Click off, click off, click off, click off. Yes. Yes,
We do now. Yeah, for our students, Ohio University is the place that fosters and celebrates the uniqueness of each individual, because Ohio empowers students to transform their aspirations into achievements. And how we came up with that is we have a base or a foundation statement that I'm trying to read here because it's all grayed out, but thank you.
There you go. Look at that. Teamwork.
Ohio University strives to be the best student-centered, I don't know this by heart, so, transformative learning community in America through an accessible, engaging student experience. Ohio University is a place that fosters and celebrates the uniqueness of individuals and empowers them to transform their aspirations into achievements. What we did was we took this statement along with the research and focus groups that we did, and we came up with a brand essence, which we had shared a while back as a 2-word meaning, individual edge. In other words, our students have a unique, independent feature that a lot of universities don't produce out there in the marketplace. And with that, we distilled it to be the core theme, which is, it's you. So with that in mind, how far should a brand go?
Well, before we do that, actually, let's talk a little bit more about It's You. Can you go back a little bit? So this concept, which you guys are obviously all familiar with, right? Right. Yeah. I like the eyebrows raised in the yes, big nod. It reflects that Ohio is the place where you can be yourself and become your best self. It's the right fit. Ohio University, it's you. So you can see how we were able to develop the It's You campaign from that brand essence of individual edge and also that phrase that you saw up there a couple slides ago. And when it comes time for a new campaign, that too will be built upon the Ohio brand. When it's time to, put It's You to bed and try out something new, it will be based on our brand because the brand is who we are, what we do, and what people can expect from us. With that in mind, how far should that brand go? Now it's you.
Thank you. So it needs to be in every aspect of our institution, and that's every aspect. While future branding workshops will dial down to the nitty-gritty of those aspects, we're going to briefly touch on some of them right now. But before we do, I wonder if anybody can give me an example of an aspect, what you've seen on campus, maybe.
We say that branding should be carried out in every aspect of our institution.
Banners.
Banners.
ID cards.
ID cards.
Letterhead.
I'm sorry, what?
Letterhead.
Letterhead.
Anything else?
We only got 3 things.
PowerPoint.
Website.
Videos.
Videos.
So one area that we've touched on is we did some, well, you can't really see them too well, but these are t-shirts that we did as giveaways, and this helped promote the brand through some social media exercises that Gabrielle had developed. We also carried this into the human resources area, and we took it a step further with You Make the Difference. We had conducted a workshop with both faculty and staff, and they pretty much helped come up with this phrase that now we use for capturing either faculty or staff in advertising. We've also just done like a whole series of ads for them for this, so to kind of carry that message out there through that. Another area that we touched was, and where it's inferred is, imagine your possibilities. This is the campaign that the, I don't think any regional folks are still here, but this is the campaign that the regional campuses and centers now use. And before this developed, we had different messaging going out from different campuses, and that now they're a little bit more unified through this effort.
The good thing about not only the regional campus statement and also the human resources is it highlights that individual edge, brand essence that we're trying to get across.
It's also been carried in print. This is actually like an advertorial that's been used in USA Today magazine. And speaking of print, we also have things like boilerplate copy, which helps to carry through not only the message consistently, but if you use this language regularly, you don't have to come up with it from scratch each time. So we're always putting out the same information, same message to folks that basically underscores who we are.
And this, of course, is available for your use. Hint, hint.
We also did online. This is the part of the t-shirt contest that was out. And we also have a video page which can't really see it real well, but displays the teaser and then the commercials that are currently running. So, is everybody ready and awake? Take a test.
Yay, pop quiz! Because we're at UCM University. We're at Ohio University, so we're going to do a pop quiz.
Okay, first question.
The best definition of a good brand is A, an easily identifiable logo. B, a great tagline. C, being perceived as the only solution to a problem someone has. Or D, why your college is the best in its class. C.
Yay!
Yay! Ding, 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 ding.
brand is focused around your logo, your look, your mission, a valued promise you make to your target audience.
Oh, this is a little more tricky. You have to infer some things from what we said. Correct answer.
Correct answer is D.
Hey.
Ding, ding, ding,
Ding,
ding.
ding, 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 ding.
So we should have said, what is the best answer? Because
We are in a room full of intelligent individuals. We want to see if you could take the knowledge we have given you and apply it to this pop quiz.
Just read this slide.
Yes, sir. So question number 3. The truest test of a brand is A, people remember it. B, people like it. C, people seek it out, will support it, and will pay more for it. Or D, none of the above. C. C.
Hey. A brand must appear on your letterhead, on your website, on your printed materials, in every aspect of your institution.
Yay!
Yay! You were listening. Congratulations, you've passed your first workshop. Does anybody have any questions?
You can all put your stickers on your books now.
Yeah.
Yes. But seriously though, you guys have any questions? This was just kind of a really basic overview of branding and why it's important and why we are using it here at Ohio University.
where do we put this in?
The questions that count. And in front of the front cover, open the book.
Inside front
and
cover?
Inside the front cover. Yes.
Is there a tagline or a phrase that you use for recruitment? I mean, we're at a regional campus, so I don't know whether or not everything that is done here in Athens is also accepted by or integrated, with the regional. But just for recruiting students, is there a special phrase that you use beyond your campaign?
Imagine your possibilities for regional campuses is what's used consistently as a tag. And then for here, it's you brand that's used. Does that answer your question?
Anyone else? Yes.
So I see you guys did sort of adjusted the youth branding a little bit for your resources. How much does the university or UCF want its youth brand marketing to be integrated with specific departments and their branding, their marketing?
We would welcome it across the board if we can make that happen. Specifically, we work pretty close in partnership with undergraduate admissions, and we've even created some templates for postcards. So if your unit's specifically working with undergraduate admissions for recruiting, you can adopt those postcard styles and use that, which is kind of nice because it's then a continuum of what they've received from the office as far as view book and other things.
And that way they're not going to get conflicting messages. We have that one unified voice.
So do you are there logos that we should be incorporating into brochures and stuff?
Well, we don't have that available at this time, but the best thing I can say is just contact our office and we'll help with that. Like for instance, we're working with Ann's shop on and Lori Bauer with some graduate pieces. So we're not taking the It's You specifically, but we're taking like the brackets and things like that and building that into it so it still has some of that look and feel to it. So for right now, probably the best practice is just when you have something come up, contact us and we'll help you with it.
So what's the thought process between the regional brand identity and then the main campus and having those kind of separate there as opposed to taking the It's You all the way through?
The regional campuses, you got to remember that where we came from with them, we had 5 areas that were just pretty much doing their own thing. And so when the It's You came about, we approached them and said, is there a way that we can get you to adopt this, is how we approached them. And we actually had a summit meeting off campus and away for like a day and a half where we conducted a compression planning meeting. And they basically came up with that phrase, the people who were involved from the 5 units. What we did do is we put a little bit of a parameter around it and said that what we'd like it to do is relate to the It's You campaign somehow, but it doesn't have to be It's You specifically. Because part of the challenge there is to get the information out to these local communities. A lot of their audience is that community. And so what they didn't want to do is have the It's You campaign out there and have people say, well, I don't want to go to the Athens campus. So what we did was we said, we'd like it to be related to that somehow, so they came up with Imagine Your Possibilities, which infers the you. And they pretty much, for the most part, have adopted that phrase and going with that. So it made it a little bit easier for them to accept and use, rather than if it was the Athens campus saying,
Sort of embrace it as
take this, yeah. So it was a little more grassroots that way. Any other questions? Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So before you leave, just a couple of housekeeping. You will see a message from me that will ask you to do 3 things. 1, I'm going to ask you to complete an evaluation for the day so that we can get some feedback and know what or if we ought to do this again, how often, what you liked, what you think we ought to change. I really would like to hear from you. The second thing I will ask you to do in that email is to look at the information, the details about the workshops, and if you're interested in signing up, yourself, your friends, your students, people that you know that are here at university that you think could benefit from it, you'll have an opportunity to do that on that particular registration. The third thing that I want you to do, and this is most important, I want you to get credit for taking part in your first workshop. So I'm going to ask you to fill out just a registration to say, I was here today and I took part in Brand 101, okay? So we can check you off to say you've got one of the core courses completed. So we've started you on your way to being a UCM University graduate. Thanks so much for coming today. There were 63 of you who showed up today, and there were 5 campuses represented and 9 academic units. I'm excited that we started here today doing this. So I think there's some possibilities to do some really exciting things in the future. So enjoy your time. It is before 5 o'clock, and I will see you next time.